There have been many attempts on live action of anime. I think you all remembered Dragon Ball Evolution. That was it was shit, right? There were other attempts like Full Metal Alchemist, like Bleach, like I believe JoJo, and they all failed. And not even in my wildest dreams would I believe that One Piece will be the one to succeed. Out of all of the worlds that you can pick to do the live action anime, it's one of the worst. Just look at some of the characters. They look wacky as hell. Like, Baggy, Alvida, Whitebeard with a big mustache, right? I don't have to mention Big Mom. I don't know how they will do that. But anyway, when I found out that they will be doing the live action for One Piece with Netflix, I was really worried. And I think most of the fans were worried. There was no live action that succeeded. Netflix has a really bad reputation, especially for taking IPs and just, fucking them over. Like with Witcher, for example, right? Or the Cowboy Bebop. Don't mention that. But still, they succeeded with One Piece. It blows my mind up to this day that it worked with One Piece. And the season 1 was very good. Like, very, very good. Was it perfect? No, obviously not. Nothing is. And rarely the first season of any show is perfect. However, I've watched some of the behind the scenes. I believe that Matt Owens is to thank for, the good state of this live action, as he's an ultra fan for the source material. And one thing that I believe it made or could make or break any live action is involvement of authors, right? Because with live action of One Piece, Oda has a final say so if something is okay or it's not. And it shows. It shows that everybody has passion and they listen to Oda-san. Because if they didn't, I believe, it would be such a different show. But as I mentioned, Matt Owens is also a great person for this because I know he's an ultra fan. He follows the manga, he reads the spoilers, he knows the theories, he even has his own theories about how One Piece will end, what will happen next, and so on. And obviously, the casting, the main cast. I remember reading somewhere that the Makenio didn't even know he was casting for One Piece until later on. I think they have to be very thankful to Iñaki Godoy because he really embodies Luffy. He has the Luffy energy. He has the Luffy aura. He has the charm. Like, you see him being goofy, you see him being careless on the screen, and you're looking at it and like, huh? You know what? I believe this is the guy. I believe this is Luffy in real life, right? So everything works. My only gripe with season 1 would be that they changed the history of meeting Luffy with Garp. Because, spoiler alert, if you didn't know, if you didn't read the manga, if you didn't watch the anime, they met way ahead in the story. We're on, like, I believe right now, season 1 ended around episode 30 something after Arlong Park. While they met, Luffy met with Garp finally and revealed that he is his grandson, right? The Luffy is grandson of Garp, and they revealed that in after Water 7, which is like way ahead. It's like something around 250 episodes or even longer. And I believe that this change was not necessary for the plot. If you didn't reveal that Luffy was the grandson of Garp and the Garp was his granddad, nothing would change. You could have just leave it at that it's the Vice Admiral of the Marines. He was somewhere in the vicinity of the island and he was like bored or something and he wanted to catch the pirates, right? But you could leave it at like, there's something more to this than that. You didn't have to just straight ahead go and tell, oh, he's my grandson. But it's the only thing that I would say I didn't like about the season 1. Of course, you can say that, oh, some of the sets looked cheesy, Arlong looked a bit weird or something, but look, like I mentioned in the beginning, One Piece is one of the worst IPs you can take to do the live action adaptation. It's one of the worst because of the wacky world, the wacky designs. Like, how would you do the guy who is basically a humanoid shark? They did quite a good job, I'd say. They did great with Mihawk, they did great. Zeph looked perfect. Buggy, I think Buggy was the standout. Apart from the Straw Hats, Buggy was amazing, and so is Zeph. Kuro was great as well. Like everything, the casting landed, the performance landed. The sets were great. I love the fact that they are doing they're building the sets, right? Like using the practical effects like they did in Lord of the Rings, rather than full-on CG. So as an ultra fan of One Piece, I think the first season was good. Maybe leaning into the great, but it wasn't like, superb. It wasn't like 10 out of 10. But it was good enough to get people interested, to make a lot of money for Netflix, because it was one of the most watched shows ever on Netflix. So it's an overall success, right? And it did something that I really love. It started to get a lot of people that would never touch One Piece, would never watch One Piece, because, let's face it, anime has its own problems. Pacing is horrible sometimes. It's been airing for almost 30 years, so there's a lot. I like the charm of old animes, but I know that many people don't. So what OPLA, One Piece live action, did is like expanded a lot of horizons, expanded to a lot of people who would never ever touch it before. For example, Nerdrodic, for example, Critical Drinker. They mainly do the content about, the comics, the books, like Game of Thrones, like Star Wars, like Star Trek, so on, Games of Thrones. I don't think they would ever touch something like One Piece. But after praising it, after watching the first season, a lot of them did, and they enjoyed it. And I know One Piece is, not for everyone, but I think it's one of the best stories in anime ever. Not the only best story, but one of the best. And if you haven't seen the first season of One Piece, you should do so right now. Try it, give it a go. But don't expect like super realistic show. Just enjoy the show, just let it take you on an adventure. It's a wacky world, it's wacky characters, there's a lot of over the top things there, but allow it to work. And trust me, you'll enjoy it. Bye-bye!